Yeah, okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today we have an incredible guest. We have Jennifer Paul. She is a council member in St. Cloud, Florida. But more than that, she is a mother. She is an identical twin like my mother. And she is also the first African-American to be elected into the council in St. Cloud. This is going to be an incredible episode. But before we dive in, Jennifer, how are you doing? And thank you for being here.
I am doing good. I have been looking forward to participating in your podcast since you reached out. So I started browsing myself, and I was like, when I got the message, I was like, who is this guy? But I knew you had two mutual connections. So, and usually when I get requests or connections, I'm always going to the person's page to scope out myself, like, who is this person? But once I did, I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to connect. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Sure. And the pleasure's all mine. I'm glad I passed the eye test and you added me. But I think there was a reason, and I'll get into that reason in a bit. But before we jump in, just give me what's the special sauce? What's the secret about St. Cloud? What are you guys doing better than other people in the United States?
I think far as us are definitely growing to a more diverse community. St. Cloud is definitely a historic community, and it's hard to always try to keep the small town life that most people are used to, but as we are moving forward to a new direction, we are becoming a more diverse community. So, and also not only that, St. Cloud has always been my hometown. I grew up here in Narcoossee area, which is an unincorporated area of Osceola County. So I love St. Cloud in general, and it's my hometown, so I'm very proud of it.
Very, very proud indeed. If my research serves me correct, you are fourth generation in St. Cloud. Is that correct?
That is correct. Fourth generation. I have two girls who fall into fifth generation of the Paul family, but definitely long history here in Osceola County, and very proud of my from where I come from. So
That's incredible. Now I have to jump into this, and then I definitely want you to have ample time to share your incredible background. But you are St. Cloud's first African American council member. How long has that been? From when to when are you the first from? And what does that mean to you? And how does that help you and shape how you lead your community?
definitely a road to barrier breaking, being as the first African American to serve on the council in 113 years. A lot of people might ask, well, why wait so long? Why 113 years? And when you know the history here of St. Cloud, which falls back to a real deep history here, and of course, we know history now is, some of it is not good history, but history has happened here. And so, therefore, when you're a history lover like me, it's a lot of things that, you can't. And that time frame, a lot of people just wasn't doing due to the history. And so, therefore, it took a lot of courage for me, because being in the political world, everyone is not fond of, putting their hat in the ring and just stepping up and getting out there. But I knew, being passionate for serving my community, I needed to step up, and this is what I did. So
I love it. I don't want to spoil it because I'm going to get into your background, but I definitely feel like you have a calling on your life. Your background, from what I've been able to research, shows manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, the community building, and now elected official. Without further ado, can you kind of get into how you ended up as the first African American council member? Was this a dream of yours from a child, or is this something that developed over time? If you can just let us us know what led you here. I'd love to hear that.
All
Thank you.
right. Well, it definitely developed over time. Definitely wasn't a dream of mine because I don't think anybody in today's world would be thrilled about being in the political world. But when you're passionate about what you do in your community, you know, you have to overlook all of that. So for me, I just started in my hometown community of Narcoossee, which is considered the Whitted Historic Community. I've grew up out there. So over time, I've seen a lot of changes from, you know, dirt roads to orange groves to now what is, you know, subdivisions are currently on these properties. And so our community is a tight-knit community, predominantly an African American community. So one day my sister and she started checking out the Osceola County Agenda Center, and she's seen that a developer wanted to come in and put townhomes on a piece of property that sits behind some of the residents that are there. And so she called me and she's like, Jen, we gotta do something. And I'm like, what do we do? So from there, we instantly picked up the phone and contacted the county commissioner for District 5 of Osceola County and let him know our concerns. Then we start sending emails out to the residents, letting them know what is going on, because, you know, not everybody is paying attention to what's happening in their community. So when you have advocates paying attention and can step up and say, hey, this is what's going on in your community, we had to let them know. And from there, it started out with going to so many meetings pertaining to this property to let the developer know that, hey, we are here in this community. We were here before the developer purchased the property. And so now, you know, I think developers want to come in and a lot of times just build what they want and not get feedback from the community that's there, that know their community more than anybody else. So when we stepped up, we attended back-to-back meetings, and sometimes meetings would get canceled, but we still showed up and they were like, it's not today. So we would come back, and it was a lot of work just making sure that we stay involved, and this didn't get passed through. And unfortunately, the developer didn't get his request passed, but there were some issues to follow that, as well as an environmental concern. So from there, we start working with leaders from federal all the way to the state, to the county, and then working with the residents, of course, to address these concerns. Community advocate being that and stepped me up, and I'm like, I have to be a voice for the people, which led me to put my name in the hat on November 2023. It was 2023, yes. That was the year that I also lost my father, and so it was a difficult year, and I knew I still needed to move forward, but I knew God had a plan for me because he reshifted my vision from, you know, pain, the loss of my father, but to a purpose in serving my community. So I look at it on the brighter side that God knew what he was doing. And from there, I just put my name in the hat and was elected November 2024. So.
That's incredible. Now, I hope the viewers can see why I reached out to you from somebody that comes from such a differentiated background, from the private sector to creating community activism in a real way, and not just staying with the Osceola County commissioner, which a lot of people don't know to take that first step. So the fact that you guys knew what to do immediately and jumped on it, also took it as high as to the federal level to make sure that everything that needed to be done gotten taken care of. That shows somebody with grit, determination, resilience. And that's a lot of the things you want in an elected official. I have to double click there. What was the campaign like? I assume, and from what I'm reading, it was more of like a grassroots campaign, which I'm a huge fan of, because when you get the actual people engaged, be it, you know, $10 into an event there, you're activating your base, and the people that you actually need to come out to the polls have a vested interest in you. So how was that? What was that process like for you, and how did you fare against any incumbents or any people with more backing potentially?
So it started out with 3 participants in my race. And from there, I knew what I wanted to do on my campaign. I didn't worry about what someone else was doing on their campaign. I just had a vision for different things, and all the way down to the color of my campaign. And I chose colors that meant something to me. I even had some of the negative feedback from people saying, well, what are you choosing blue for? Is it because you represent a party? But they were far from the correct answer, and they were definitely loud and wrong. But I chose the colors, which I had like a royal blue, which represented my dad's favorite color. And then I had pink, which was also my favorite color. And so when I combined those 2 colors together, it just made my campaign colors pop. I also worked alongside with my cousin. She's in the Gen Z generation, so she was definitely with brilliant ideas, and I can't thank her enough for that, because we did a lot of things that she really took me out of my comfort zone of just showing up in my campaign and being authentic about it. And so from there, I raised a little bit over $10,000. And I knew it was from a lot of the seniors and hardworking individuals. And a lot of people look at, oh, if a developer supports their campaign, don't, support them because they're in developers' pockets. Thankfully, I didn't have to get money from developers. It was just all of hard work and, ordinary people. And I had one organization that endorsed me as well with financial. And then as far as endorsements, I had a commissioner from Kissimmee also endorse me. And I had, there are organizations that endorse, but they didn't support. They went with someone else. So, I just thank God for allowing me to just have my own vision when it comes to my campaign and how it was ran. I want it to be positive. I didn't want any mudslinging, no negative stuff. I always stuck to my stuff about, my campaign and what I want to do for the community. And I think a lot of people look at, elected officials now as they're in the backing of developers' pockets. And I didn't want that attention on me. So I just stuck to what I wanted to do on my campaign and ran off with it and was elected on November 5th as the first African American for City of St. Cloud. So
it all worked out. And I know one person that is so deeply proud of you, and that's your father. The ability of, as you said, to take your pain and almost transmute that into purpose and power is so special, and it speaks to who you are as a person, but it also speaks to what your father taught you.
yes.
I think I shared with you as well. I lost my father, but I know I was blessed to have him for 17 years, and he taught me more than a lot of people are taught in their entire lives. So those lessons are living through you, and I definitely want to applaud you there. And taking a deep pivot, what is a sundown town?
So a sundown town was when, of course, minorities in the community would have to leave the area before it got dark. And so St. Cloud has history of being a sundown town. And as a history lover, I always spoke to a lot of the generations that were before me. They knew a lot of the histories. City of St. Cloud actually did a series for Black History Beyond Sundown, a great series of talking to individuals who are still currently living in the community, but they did recognize the sundown town of the history of it and happening in right here in St. Cloud. So they were able to do interviews with some of the individuals and just talk about things. And one thing that led me to doing that was ended up doing a proclamation to denounce it, because as I was out canvassing, I had a lot of people ask me, and I asked them questions of what was some of the concerns you have in the community. And besides hearing about traffic and the infrastructure, they also mentioned the history, the image here of St. Cloud. And I was like, what do you mean? And some people start going into details about the history. If they knew what it was, they would have never moved here in St. Cloud. And I start scratching my head and I'm like, wow, we're in 2024 at the time, and we're having people talk about wishing they would have never come to St. Cloud. Or, I was in a conversation with someone else at an event, and it was during Black History time, and the lady told me, and this is exactly why she has family that won't come to St. Cloud. So me doing the proclamation was definitely, I was passionate about, it was on my heart to do, and I wanted to let the community, St. Cloud community, know, and even those in Osceola County and worldwide know that we are a community of welcoming all people. And so that I wanted to make sure and do it publicly so people can see that we are a community of welcoming all walks of life in St. Cloud community. So Sundown Town was one that was listed, and I seen that on TikTok. And TikTok is popular now, so when the guys start listing, I was like, oh my goodness, St. Cloud is listed on TikTok as a sundown town. So I took that information and just started gathering stuff, and led me to doing the proclamation, which I am proud of doing. So
Yeah, no, that is important. Even just in a symbolic nature to denounce that, and have that come from the actual municipality, like, is very impressive and important, because it acknowledges the past and the history, but also puts a end cap to it. It's like, hey, this is not going on anymore. And just for context for the viewers, when St. Cloud was a sundown town, what era or what time are we kind of speaking?
so I would look at maybe earlier, I would say maybe between 1960s maybe to 1975, in that time frame. I know, I have my oldest uncle was 92 years old, so he remember a lot of history. The Paul family came to Narcoossee in 1952, so he remembered a lot of history from that time frame. He even had stories of his own where he did interviews and talked about some of the way of life it was back in that time frame. And there was racism during that time frame, and this is why I was heavily passionate about doing, because I wanted to share that we don't need to go backwards, we need to go forward. So back in between 1950s, I would say 1975 was when it was rough for the minorities in the community. So, but that was one way we should acknowledge it, so that way we move forward and we don't repeat ourselves in histories.
For sure, but the context that I wanted to get to viewers is, when you think of, like, I've heard stories of sundown towns. I'm like a distant relative of Emmett Till, so like we hear these stories and we think they're so far back. So to hear that it's in the 50s through the 70s is just scary. So I do think that measure that you took into denounce it was smart, imperative, and just really just lets you know that you guys are stepping into the next generation of St. Cloud. Now, one of the things that a lot of people that elected you were excited about was your ability to bridge the gap between different cultures and communities. In your time that you've been working, what have been some of the initiatives that you've seen, or ways that you've been kind of bridging the gap between different cultural communities?
So right now, I've been working with our St. Cloud PD. Of course, I'm a member of the NAACP for Osceola County Branch 5121. So I serve on there as the ECJ chair for the Environmental and Climate Justice Committee. And one thing I noticed was when we have meetings, I always would never see the St. Cloud Police Department at the meetings. And so one thing that I reached out was to our police chief, who's phenomenal, Chief Gerke, and some other PD officers, and was like, hey, what can we do I want to invite you to a meeting. And so he came to one meeting and he was like, Jen, I didn't know we were invited. And, and that's the thing that, you don't know. And so bridging that gap was very, it was nice to see, because we actually had a meeting last week, and I believe there was about 6 of them that came. And of all the years that the NAACP has been in the community, I have never seen them attend a meeting. And it was always Kissimmee PD that attended and Osceola Sheriff's that attended, but St. Cloud never showed up. And so they were like, well, we didn't know we can attend. So bridging that gap was definitely important, because not only we do have members between Osceola County that are involved in this organization from St. Cloud, but I think it's a great opportunity to bridge the gap with law enforcement, so that way they can share concerns of what's going on in their community, and they're not afraid to come and reach out to law enforcement and say, hey, this is happening in my community, what can I do? But bridging that gap was important for me as well. So I'm all about bridging the gap, finding ways to bridge the gap. So a peacemaker, because I definitely don't, we're in a world right now in critical times, but we see so much, hatred going on, but I'm just one that love bridging the gap. And that was part of my platform on my campaign, was bridging the gap. So
For sure, and I think that's so important, to align electeds to the police department and also to the community. And I think that bridging the gap, everything I've seen online about you is just shines through, and it's something that people really resonated with. And just generally, I believe, and excuse me if I say it incorrectly, you were elected November of 2024.
yes.
Okay, perfect. So about 8, 9 months. What have been some of like your big wins or initiatives that you're proud of? And they don't have to be bridging the gap, just general your first 8 to 9 months.
So right now we have a lot of meetings that I definitely love the fact that we're able to sit at the round table and talk about some, different things that are going on, and even issues. And because outside of City Hall, we're unable to talk to each other outside, due to the Florida Sunshine Law. But when we have workshops, it allows us to go through each agenda item, talk about things. If there are things that needs to be corrected or a better way of doing something, then that's our opportunity to speak up and say, hey, I think this is what we should do. We all come from different backgrounds and upbringing, but when we're able to sit at the table and talk about issues and get them moving forward, then I think, that's the beauty of it, as well as working together. So other than that, right now I'm just really showing up in the community by supporting different organizations. I also sit on the St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce as a board member, St. Cloud Main Street as a board member, and Osceola History as a board member. So, but when it comes to supporting the community, if I always say, if I get the invite, I'm there. A lot of times people, they want you to be there, but, it's communicating that, you have something going on in the community and show. And I think that's what a lot of people are loving to see, because they're like, Jennifer, you be everywhere. I'm like, yep, I get invites to. So I think just supporting the community in general is definitely a bit key. So right now, don't have too many wins, but other than the proclamation right now, but I think just being at the round table to talk about things that's happening is definitely a start to the next, few years while I'm in office. So
Yeah, I know I put you on the spot. It's 8 months, and that and what has to be done. 8 months is just like still learning.
yes.
Just kind of figured everything out. So I knew it was a little early, but I did want to just ask. And as far as the chamber and the small Main Street Inc., what are some of the things that you guys are maybe thinking about doing to support local businesses, or maybe things that the organizations have done in the past?
So right now for the St. Cloud Chamber, they support a lot of the new business that comes here. And they have one thing that I love, I support as well, is showing up to their grand opening when they have new business that come in and they do the ribbon cutting. So as a board member and in representation for the city of St. Cloud, I definitely like to show up to support the business owners and let them know that we're here. We thank them for being in the city of St. Cloud, because, they have choices that they don't have to come to St. Cloud, but to come to St. Cloud, says a lot as a business owner when they want to put their business here in St. Cloud. And far as St. Cloud Main Street, they focus on a lot of historic preservation. So definitely things that are happening downtown in the community our rep Stark, Paula, she does a great job with ensuring that, history, preserving the history here, because definitely St. Cloud has a lot of history. And they also award the little historic plaques to some of the buildings here in St. Cloud are definitely old historic wise, and they, get plaques awarded to them for the business of the historic. So I think that's a great thing to preserving the history, although we are moving forward with growth, but it's also a great thing to see that history is being preserved to still recognize of the past as well.
It's so important to understand where you've come from and champion that. I think the history is always good to put on that megaphone. And I love you actually getting out in the community. I know the business owners appreciate that to have elected officials supporting them, in their infancy when they're just getting started. I think that sends the message that we are in this together for the long haul. So you're creating true partners in the community. Now, as far as the younger generation, I know you brought up your cousin who's Gen Z, and I know you have two teens. What are you doing for the young people? How are you connecting with them, be it education, arts, community life? How are you outreaching and attempting to impact their lives?
So one thing I would like to see in our community is, right now I just had my youngest daughter who graduated from St. Cloud High School, class of 2025. So, go Bulldogs. But yes, one thing I would like to see is definitely resources in the community for the young adults, especially those that are graduating and heading into the real world, as we call it. So many, young adults right now, the training when it comes to being on the work, into the real world, getting into the workplace, and them having a training to make sure they do what they need to do on jobs and stuff like that. Right now, I think it's so much different. You got a lot of kids, they'll get on the job and then go to the bathroom and be on the phone. And you want to make sure you prepare the children, the young adults, into the right way when it comes to training. Having a community youth resource day would be something I would like to see, where different organizations get together, especially those that are in the field of employment, ensuring that they help guide the youth into the right direction and preparing them for what's ahead. So I have different initiatives that I would like to see in the city happening right now. Once, we get to the round table and talk about things, then sharing those ideas. But I do have some that I'm always brainstorming something. So, and as well as an overthinker, but I would like to see those happening in the future. So
Excited for your children. I'm excited for the community, and I'm excited to learn myself. So I'll definitely circle back to kind of see some of those ideas. I think it is so important to reach out to the next generation, and I think something as small as just the etiquette of the office space. There was a lot of things. I went from college to JP Morgan, and it was quite a culture shock. There's little things that I just did not know. So I think having things like that in place just so they can understand, and then even things is more advanced is like vocational training and technical training support. I know those things are re-emerging at first in the United States. That way, the way to go. Then more recently, we've seen places like Sweden just have, I think it was something like 85% of their students do some type of vocational education, and they have unreal job markers and educational attainment. So I'm glad that is kind of permeating back into the United States. So the etiquette, but also the skills training, I think are going to be some things that we hopefully see for our youth. I got a almost 1 year old, so
yeah.
I'm playing it early. So I
Yeah,
may have to.
absolutely. And it's funny that you say that because, I look at it, not everybody is going to go to college, and I don't knock that, but there are trade schools out there that, people can go to. And for me, thankfully, I didn't go to college. Started out with Valencia for a tad bit right after high school, but That didn't work out on my behalf, but always growing myself from the bottom to the top, working my way up. And I always had the work experience on all of my jobs, a great work ethic. So, and that's a shout out to my parents for, instilling that in us and also being examples to us what our work ethic is supposed to be like. But I always worked my way up and didn't have a college degree, but I was able to move up on jobs just by having that work experience. And so, but I think, we're in new times now. So different, people are having different ideas of what they want to do. Trade schools I always say, don't, sleep on those, but they're good as well. So
10%. I think that pendulum is swinging quicker than a lot of higher education institutions may believe, especially because of the cost.
yes.
So, but yeah, no, I'm definitely eyeing that. So, how, when you speak of things like obviously you're on the board of the Main Street program, and you speak of so much history in St. Cloud, how do you balance respecting history and advancing a future? That is something that I kind of see as a tightrope for so many people. I speak to mayors, council members, city managers, and we want to preserve our past and keep what makes us St. Cloud, but also we may have to bring in new industry or bring in more affordable housing or change the quality of life to fit the needs of the younger generation coming up. How do you kind of think about, I know just maybe not implement anything, but how do you think about that balance?
I think right now, like St. Cloud Main Street, they do a great job with ensuring that we identify, for example, all the buildings here in St. Cloud as historic if we're able to do that. And they do a great job with doing that, as well as, okay, we're going to identify this as historic, but we're also want to bring in new business. And I think you have to just be able to balance the two, but also incorporate the past as well, those who have been also existing, making sure that we don't forget about those who were here before. New development is coming in, but it's definitely hard, but I think it's necessary to ensure that we incorporate the two. And that's even going to communities and sitting at the community meeting talking about, hey, what do you want to see, in your community that you want, just getting feedback from the community is definitely another key as well. And then incorporating those with the new development that's happening. For example, on the Whittier Historic Community, we had a community meeting where they were talking about new development. And so a lot of us went from the community and we started seeing, where are we at on the map? And they had a Narcoosee overlay that was developed years ago, but we weren't identified on the map. And so we brought that to their attention because they didn't include us on the map. And nor did they get feedback from the community to say, hey, we're doing this, at least us, as in the Whittier Historic Community. So now we have a commissioner that we brought it to his attention and during community meetings, and they just recently voted to go ahead and update the Narcoosee overlay to add us on a community for future plans that they have. So that way, when we see new development maps, then we'll see the Whittier Historic Community is identified on those maps. So I think it's just necessary to definitely value the input from those who have already been here and just getting the feedback. So, and then as well as to incorporate it moving forward with new development.
I believe that is so important to balance that history, but also I love what you said about the representation, even just the representation on the map. So now developers know they have to at least give you guys a conversation, and it's nothing they can just look over. So I think that is so important. Now, when I start to think of being an elected official in a community, I always say everything can't be all sunshine and rainbows.
Yes.
Is there anything that if you could just snap your fingers and change just something just overnight, what would that be, and why?
So I think for me, I would say one thing is ensuring that we as residents having clean quality water. One instance was in Narcoosee where a lot of the residents relied on private wells, but then we had a contaminated property that sits in the center, but Of course, water underground travels, and so therefore, it was getting into some of the residents' home. But if I can do that, just have quality water, and even the Whitted Historic Project water project completed overnight, that would be my wish, as well as ensuring that other residents surrounding this community also have clean quality water, because there's, nothing that impacts a lot of things. You have to Right now, I know a lot of people probably don't cook with their water, but they're still bathing in their water, still washing their hair and things like that. But just having clean quality water is something that I would wish we could have overnight. So
That's a great one. That is so important. And it's not just, I wish it was just an easy fix, but that is a resource that is needed and can affect so many people. So I definitely hope for the best for the long haul. I know it might not be overnight, but I'm glad your community has elected officials that are very, very tied in. I know you did it with the worked on the Whitted plan as well. So very tied into what's going on. And before we wrap up, I do want to ask. I know your term, I believe, is until 2028. But what is the legacy, the long-term legacy that you want to lead? Or I can rephrase the question: in 25 years, what will people be saying about St. Cloud?
breaking barriers, for one. I know we as an African American community, we face a lot and stuff like that throughout, the world. And just to break a barrier here in St. Cloud that so many people probably didn't expect to happen, but just ensuring that, I want to be an elected official that leaves behind that she was passionate about her community. I don't want to be compared to other elected officials as people thinking, oh, they're in the pockets of different people. I want to be passionate about what I do, and it's from the heart. I have two girls that will be in this world, and as I move forward, move on, but I want to be able to make sure that I don't have to worry about my girls they're going to grow up in this same world, but it's different now. So I just want to be passionate about everything that I do. So intentional. I want to be able to sit at the table with everybody and talk about things that is necessary. I want to be able to make sure, even being a peacemaker, as well, being united in the community, in the world, as we should be anyway. So
I hear you want to leave a legacy of a united community, and you want to be known as that conduit for that. That was never afraid to step up for the community, never afraid to sit down with anybody, and championed it. The one that is the peacemaker to bring people together. And with that, I know your daughters will be able to grow up in the community. They'll be safe, supported, and they'll be proud of their mother that worked hard to create that legacy of peace, understanding, and just amiability. I think everyone just wants to be in a community that people can be amicable at the very least. If they disagree with people's opinions, but they'll listen to them and they'll try to learn from them. So I think that's impressive, Jen. I know people are going to want to learn more about your story and see some of those initiatives that you spoke about for young people. Where can they connect with you? What's the best means for them to reach out or learn more?
So I am on Facebook as my professional page, Jennifer A. Paul for City of St. Cloud. I do have a personal page where a lot of people try to come and find me and then they'll request me, but I am a believer of keeping everything separate, personal and professional. And I am also on Instagram under the same ID number, identification name as well. And I do have a TikTok, but I haven't posted on there. That was just really during campaign purposes. You might see it again if I decide to run later on in the years to come. But other than that, Facebook on my professional page and Instagram on my professional page as well. So I look forward to seeing, speaking with you again. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast today. So thank you again.
Pleasure was definitely mine. We've heard some great insights on community activism, running a campaign that's not beholden to anybody, and then also a trailblazer, being the first African American council member, and I don't know the exact amount, but I know it was over 100 years,
Yeah.
and that is a lot.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm very proud of it. Always words to wisdom to end is I want to encourage especially our youth, to get involved in their communities as well. Know who your elected officials is. Always collaborate. That's definitely a big key, and I'm a believer of is collaborating and networking with everybody. So just stay involved and pay attention to what's going on, because there's definitely a lot going on. So
That's great words of wisdoms to end on. Network with everyone. You never know who is able to help you, who is able to be an ear to just listen to you, or who you may be able to help. So, Jen, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and to all our viewers, thank you for watching. This has been the Gentry Podcast, and yes, we had Jen Paul, the first African American council member in St. Cloud, Florida. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, everyone. Have
all
a
right,
great one.
you too. Bye.